Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook. Hello and welcome to this Fleet Geeks podcast on Tarnished, get my mouth around it, tarnished reputation with the traffic commissioner. So it's kind of like your worst nightmare, isn't it? As a transport manager or as a director of a operation, is to tarnish your reputation or lose loss of reputation with the traffic commissioner. But I thought I would do a podcast specifically on tarnished reputation. As I record this, yesterday I was at the RHA's briefing with the traffic commissioner, and we had Richard Turfitt, who is both the senior traffic commissioner, but when he's in the East region, he is the traffic commissioner for the Eastern region as well. And he came and spoke to us, and one of the questions he got asked was around having a tarnished reputation, and it was quite interesting actually, because that was something I learned from it. Because once a transport manager has a tarnished reputation, was how does that tarnishing become removed, and do you apply to have it removed or that kind of thing? And actually the response was relatively fluid, in that if you get a tarnished reputation, it might take, essentially, to ensure that you don't go and see him again. The response, I think, if I was to quote Mr. Turfitt, was, "You better make sure that I don't see you again anytime soon," was the response. Now, I think with a reputation, essentially, reputation is earned over time. As Benjamin Franklin said, it takes many good deeds to build a good reputation and only one bad one to lose it. But there's a range of things that can make you lose your repute or tarnish your repute with the traffic commissioner. But the interesting thing that came out was that essentially a period of time of essentially good reputation will outline the tarnished reputation, or will overcome the tarnished reputation. So if you had a tarnished reputation 3 to 5 years ago, then that potentially will be made good in 4 to 5 years or 3 to 5 years of good operating. If that's any different, let me know if anyone thinks any differently. But I believe that was what we picked up yesterday at the briefing, which was interesting. So how do you get a good reputation? Well, having a good reputation is something you have by having a lack of bad reputation. Okay, so essentially the trust element is absolutely vital. And it was interesting hearing Richard Turfitt yesterday when he was talking about a public inquiry, because he was laughing about all the ridiculous promises that could be getting made when someone's right under the cosh at a public inquiry. And actually, in reality, the decision's got to be made is can I trust this person in front of me? Because it comes down to trust between human beings. Can I trust this person in front of me to be compliant moving forward? And obviously, it's a shame that sometimes it takes people until the very last minute running up to a public inquiry to accept responsibility and to be a better person moving forward. And actually, there's lots of warning signs that can occur on the way to whatever creates that public inquiry. So essentially, if you've got a good reputation, if you're a good person that's trustworthy, that action might happen a little bit sooner. In a perfect world, it will happen proactively. Okay, so the first learning is to make sure we're proactive with our compliance, which I'm sure a lot of you are, because I'm preaching to the converted, because you all listen to the podcast. Those of you that are listening to this and watching this on YouTube, I'm preaching to the converted because you guys are being proactive listening, but there are people out there who aren't. So what can happen to affect your repute? Well, abusive behaviour. If you were abusive to the DVSA, the traffic commissioner, or any of their staff, that's likely to result in an issue around your reputation and potentially tarnishing your repute. Deliberate attempts to circumvent the operator licensing system. Now, I've had some customers in the past that I've spoken to, and they're always trying to find a loophole. And essentially, loopholes don't exist, but there's often a way of people trying to circumvent the operator licensing system. That's a surefire way to cause a problem, as well as being dishonest when dealing with either the DVSA or the Traffic Commissioner as well. Making sure that you're always upfront, disclosing any previous dealings or any issues. If you appear to hide something, interestingly, Jordan Peterson, I went to watch him this week as I record this, and one of his 12 rules for life is always assume the other person knows more than you do. And sometimes with the traffic commissioners, that could be the case. So, yeah, make sure that you're not dishonest and make sure that you're upfront. Failing to notify material changes. So there's stuff that you're obliged to inform and keep informed the traffic commissioners with.
Hello, it's Shani from Flagship Partners. We are really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. If you need expert advice or training for your fleet business, make Flagship Partners your first choice. We are really excited to announce the launch of our Transport Manager Academy. With expert development for fleet leaders, we offer fully accredited initial Transport Manager CPC training, CPC refresher, and operator license awareness training, as well as mentoring, support, and professional development beyond the qualification. Our vision is to develop elite fleet professionals.
It's important to make sure you keep those changes up to date. It might be changes of directors, shareholders, location, address, contact details, or it might be convictions. And there's a list of the convictions that you have to notify the traffic commissioner of. So just make sure that you follow those and make sure you make those notifications. Having a previous poor history of dealings with the traffic commissioner and any other authorities as well, that can obviously affect your repute. So what should you do? What should you do if you have a tarnished repute? Well, what you should do, and what the advice I have to give you, is to make sure that you don't do anything naughty again and don't get in front of the traffic commissioner. So make sure that you're proactive and you're doing the right things, and hopefully with a bit of fair luck and a lot of hard work and operating in a reputable manner, will allow time to pass. And as time will pass, that will relieve the tarnishing on your transport manager or on your directorship. So I thought that was useful for you to think about. Now, one of the things that I did when I was researching this podcast was I was looking at what are tips for tackling a tarnished reputation. Because the thing is operator licensing is all very public, isn't it? And having a tarnished reputation publicly could be a little bit damaging for you, for your business, and those kinds of things. Because sometimes it's the stuff that doesn't happen in front of your face that can cause you a challenge. It could be the stuff that happens behind closed doors. Maybe there's an industry event and someone's had a bad experience with you, and they're tarnishing your reputation by the way they speak about you, and those kinds of things. So I think it's an important thing to really focus on, actually. And as I talk about reputation, it's a really, really important thing. Now, reputation can get tarnished. In the case of the traffic commissioner, I think it's always going to be justified, because I believe they operate in a just and fair way. Obviously, there'll be occasions where appeals can be made and those kinds of things, but generally speaking, we have to accept that there's a justice system, and that you will be dealt with justly. Now, there will be times when your reputation may get tarnished, aside from operator licensing, but as a business owner or as a business person or as a transport manager or anything like that, where someone will try to tarnish your reputation. Maybe, for example, a disgruntled driver will complain about you or try to tarnish your reputation with the DVSA, for example. Now, my advice with that is to make sure that if you're proactive in your compliance and the way that you work, then you're always prepared for that eventuality, aren't you? Because you're doing the right things in a reputationally sound way. So someone might try to have a pop at you. They might be underhanded, and oftentimes it'll be disgruntled drivers that might cause you an issue when it comes to them reporting that they might have wild claims about the way that you operate in your operation, and you have to justify that you're doing things in the right way. So I think it's important to just reflect on that and to think about it. You might go for a job interview somewhere, and you have to give a reference, for example. Now, people can't give a bad reference about you, but you don't know what they're saying at the industry events that they speak to, or that the person that you pissed off in your last job is not a mate of the person who's currently looking to hire you, for example. Now, that can be difficult. That can be really, really difficult for you. So one of the things to think about, how can you mitigate that? Well, it can be really tricky, but if you've had a bad professional relationship with somebody, sometimes transparency is the best option. Okay. So if you're going to an employer and you're worried about providing a reference, or you're worried that someone might try and interfere, then tackle it head on. Be really honest. But one of the things, my biggest bit of advice is to don't try and paint yourself in this perfect picture and lay all the blame at someone else's door, because that's one way of coming across as unreputable. So if you want to come across as reputable, you need to take more than your fair share of the blame for whatever occurred, because that will show that you've reflected on it and discussed what you've learned from it, because that will be more likely to build rapport, in my opinion. So that's something to think about, because I think it's important to take responsibility for whatever your actions have been and reflect on there being a negative situation and what have you. But I think if you want to build good reputation, it's important to demonstrate that you are willing to accept responsibility for at least your fair share of whatever went wrong. So I think be wary, because sometimes you might not think that something has caused an issue to tarnish your reputation, from a sense of a soured professional relationship. But you don't know how poorly someone else has taken that situation. So that is something to think about. So hopefully that's been interesting. Hopefully that's been useful and one to think about. Have you had your reputation tarnished? I'd be interested to hear from you. Drop me a message or drop me a call. I'll be interested to have a chat with you and how's that worked for you. I hope that the advice I've given and the support I've given has been useful. It's useful to think about reputation. Sometimes people work so hard to try and be without blame, and sometimes we do have to accept our fair share of blame. So that's an interesting thing as well, about having that responsibility, taking that responsibility. But ultimately, hopefully this has been useful and hopefully it's been interesting, and I'll be interested to hear your perspective on it. So please do share it. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe, and see you on another podcast soon. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.